In Disco Elysium, you play the role of a policeman whose mind is broken. You wake up in a hotel room, utterly amnesiac in your hangover. By the end of the story, you'll learn you were a competent, if eccentric cop who unraveled spectacularly. Long ago, you loved someone, she dumped you, and you never got over it. The drunken bender that left you in this state is the culmination of a 6-year-long descent into madness, because you just couldn't let go. The game's main mission is to solve the murder case hanging in the pub's backyard. From the start, you're joined by Kim Kitsuragi, a policeman from a different precinct who's here to work the case with you and suffer through your nonsense. Kim is a super nerd who can grow to trust you or despise you, depending on your choices, and he plays the straight man to all your silly antics, making sure you never stray too far from the actual mission. You run all over interrogating every NPC you meet, and slowly you unfurl the case with every new bit of information you discover. The victim starts as a central government-owned mercenary hung from a tree, but later on you discover he was shot coitus interruptus style, and then made to look like a hanging, for a bunch of reasons. It's a well-made whodunit that had me wondering all the way to the final reveal, although, I was more interested in all the other stuff going on. Solving the case felt secondary to the real mysteries, the amnesia, who the hell am I and why the hell am I this way, and also what the hell is going wrong in Martinez. Martinez is the name of this corner of the world, a world that I figured was just dirty France at first. But it's actually far stranger. You learn it's not spherical, for one. It's not a planet. It's this real weird disk world floating in the Pale, which is a sort of immaterial fog that surrounds every landmass and drives sailors insane over time. You learn the Pale is encroaching on the land, shifting, threatening to swallow certain parts of civilized world. Eventually, a magical stick creature tells you the Pale was created by humans somehow, perhaps a manifestation of collective consciousness and such. If it sounds like it's very open to interpretation, well, it is. It's not supposed to be a clear and defined concept. It's just the Pale. In your meandering and side questing, you also learn there is a hole in the fabric of reality, atop the church by the fishing village, an anomaly that may be causing all sorts of havoc in the region and maybe growing. There's a lot of silly ideas that you can choose to believe or not as the disco detective, like you make a lot of stuff up inside your head, but this one is presented 100% straight. This hole in reality is there, acknowledged by several other people around you, and it can be a real world-ending problem. Another side quest is hunting the aforementioned magical stick creature around Martinez. You run all over the place doing errands and checking traps, and I never really expected to find it. I was just doing the RPG thing and getting every side quest done. It's framed as helping out this kooky old couple with their silly hunt for the Sasquatch, the Insulindian phasmid, excuse me. And it's up to you whether to believe in it or not, which I ended up doing because my guy was the most disastrous oddball I could get away with, and he felt in character to fully buy into this cryptozoology nonsense. I wasn't terribly invested in the outcome one way or another, but I figured this would be one of those the journey is what really mattered side stories, Anyway, I'm telling you about it because it matters towards the ending sequence. In all your dealings, you can choose to roleplay as a good, 5 or 6 distinct personas, what the game calls capo types. You can be a rockstar cop, a sorry cop, a cop of the apocalypse, my personal choice, a hard-boiled, no-nonsense cop, or just an erratic ball of unpredictable idiocy. And with all the political ideologies on top of that, parodies of communist and capitalist, nationalist and fascist, you can roleplay as homophobic or racist and misogynist, or none of the above. And of course, the RPG standard, being a decent person versus being a total scumbag. It's all a really, really fun time. And my favorite, all throughout, there are multiple allusions and flashbacks and notes, dreams, foreshadowing, all about this terrible trauma around this woman you loved. This is the center of your pain, is the source of the reckless self-destruction and deep melancholy in the game. Disco Elysium plays a majority of the situations for laughs, but this woman, Dora, she embodies the tragedy at the heart of the story. A sense of dread takes over the narrative whenever she comes up. And to her belongs the emotional climax near the end, during a dream sequence of all things. A dream sequence I thought at the time would be one of several because she mentions it's a recurring dream. So I thought it would continue unfolding, but it didn't. The point is, I was extremely invested in learning more about her, learning exactly what they'd done to one another to wreck this man to such a degree. And then about 30 minutes later, the ending happened. You see, eventually, the only lead you haven't exhausted is exploring the nearby island, because it's the only place left where the kill shot may have come from. And there, after jumping through a couple hoops, you finally meet the killer. It's a crazy old man who's been holding on for decades to his hatred since the failed Revolutionary War. Because of this, and because of his weird infatuation with the mercenary's lover, he shot him during their depraved night of drug-fueled debauchery. He's just there, sitting by the campfire, and gives you a full confession without much trouble. So, he turns out to be an out-of-left-field rando, without any real connection to anyone you've met this far. But I was okay with it at the time, because it was obviously part of the narrative. You know, it was downplaying the gravitas of the crime, because the story is about to transcend it. The guy does fit nicely with all the lore of the game, but it makes it feel like this is one of those stories where the main quest turns into a springboard for bigger issues and higher stakes. And I was convinced of this, because right after you're done with this guy, you get the chance to finally encounter the phasmid you were hunting all over the place. And it's this really great encounter that immediately overshadows the old man. You return to the mainland right away, and I was sincerely anticipating whatever plot would develop now from the hole in reality and the pale encroaching on Martinez. I was ready. But you motorboat back to the fishing village, and a few steps in, you're confronted by your former partner and two of his co-workers. This is the final conversation in the game. It craps on nearly every single plot point and lore bit I was invested in. And then the game just ends. It's a real downer of a conversation. All that stuff you did that's not directly related to the case, what a stupid waste of time. The hole in reality that might end the world as we know it, what ridiculous nonsense. Shut your mouth about that. The pail? We're not even gonna mention that. The phasmid? You're drunk, aren't you? Yes, you are. Oh, you want to know who you were? A gym teacher who became a policeman, that's it. Who was this woman that inspired you to fight the good fight? The love of your life? Your soulmate? You fool! She was some hot chick you shacked up with. Nothing special about it, and on and on and on and on and on. So deeply unsatisfying. These were realistic and believable things to say for someone who hasn't gone through it all, who isn't invested. Your typical skeptic naysayer that gets rebuffed in your path to self-discovery. Instead, he's the final word. You don't get anything after this. The conversation ends with them saying they'll take you back to their precinct, and credits roll. Now, I don't feel as strongly about it as I felt when the credits first rolled. After a bunch of very disappointed research and a couple reloads to do some things differently, I found out the conversation can be slightly more positive about your escapades, depending on what you do. The thing is, all game long, I was going out of my way to be a drug-addled, alcoholic wreck who made terrible decisions. So you could say I got the bad ending, if there's such a thing in Disco Elysium. Kim, you remember him? There's the guy that joined me to work the case. Well, he didn't trust me because I was a racist piece of garbage to him. So I couldn't save him in the big showdown before you go to the island, which meant that he couldn't back me up in the final conversation. He makes a pretty big impact. Instead, I had Kuno, the foul-mouthed street urchin, fumbling his way through the dialogue. Kuno respects me, since, I punched him straight in the face. He wants to be a policeman, just like me. The core of what I felt about this ending, it still stands though. It's a terrible, abrupt ending. And this conversation would have been fine, even great, if it weren't the last one. It's the final note the game ends with, a dour tribunal passing harsh judgment on the sense of wonder the story has cultivated up to this point. It's a disservice to everything that came before. I could hope the developers simply ran out of time and money and decided to cap it off unceremoniously, but even if that's the case, it would just be an excuse. It could have been wrapped up without taking a dump over everything you've discovered and gotten invested in. So, I don't think that's the case. Writing of the exquisite quality you can find in Disco Elysium doesn't happen often in video games. The folks at Zaum knew exactly what they were doing with the words they put together. So, I fear the tone and message with which it ends is 100% planned and intentional. It reeks of postmodernism. And I know bringing this up has become a meme at this point, but it doesn't make it any less unpalatable. The intent seems to be this nihilistic, nothing matters, and you were an idiot for caring. This deconstruction that truly grates on my nerves when it comes to storytelling. There's enough of that in the world. I know nothing makes sense and nothing really matters, but I want my stories to matter. I want them to leave the reader in a better place after they're done reading. Not necessarily with a happy ending, not even a tidy ending that makes every piece fall in place, but a fulfilling ending that doesn't leave you with a grimace. Another reason why I think this grimace ending is intentional is because it wouldn't have been that hard to fix on a tight budget. A simple conversation with yourself during the ride back. A conversation with Kim, whether he's with you or while visiting him at the hospital. Even a fade to black and to be continued would have done it. Anything to say this guy didn't have the last word on the events of the story. I've seen Disco Elysium's narrative often compared favorably to Planescape Torment, and while I still disagree with that before the ending happened, now I'm like, get the hell out of here with that. Planescape Torment gives you an existentially horrifying, yet meaningful, fulfilling ending. I don't want to spoil it just in case you haven't played it, but it wraps up that story so well. It's really well done. In contrast, after giving you one of the best RPG rides of the decade, in the end, Disco Elysium takes a piss on your head and calls it rain.